Good afternoon, everybody. I would like to thank you all for coming to this panel discussion, and I want to thank the organizers for having all of us. Today we'll be talking about a very important topic, which is building the national capacity in cybersecurity. I would like to welcome the guests here. Dr. Jalal Al-Muhtadi is the director of the Center of Excellence in King Saud University. Also, I have Nasser El-Hout, director from Service Management Center of Excellence based in Dubai. And I have the VP of Information Technology, Mr. Mamdouh Khawaji from Sedco company. One of the things that we would like to highlight today is the major components or major blocks of building cybersecurity capacity across a nation on a national level. So I would like to start with Dr. Jalal and ask him about what do you think the most important major blocks for a country to launch on, to start with as an initiative to build their national cybersecurity capacity?
Thank you very much. I think I have a little bit of a slideshow. Hopefully, inshallah, I will not bore you. But basically, I would like to talk about some very important building blocks for building capacities and so on. So basically, I believe that there is basic building blocks for any for building cybersecurity capacity. And basically, namely, there are three major parts. Basically, awareness, how to raise awareness about cybersecurity, about security in general, about information assurance, and so on. And the other part is actually training. How can you train professionals in this field? In particular, and you have to train them early on and continuously, in a continuous manner. And finally, we have to have practical on-hand development and research that is done locally in the region, and not just buy products available from outside. So basically, needless to say that people are the weakest link in any security system. So as I can buy the best tools, the best technologies, as we saw outside in the exhibition, there are many tools, there are technologies, there's tools of the trade, but basically if I don't have good enough humans, if I don't have awareness, if people do not understand what is security exactly and how can I actually add this security, then all of this technology is actually void, it's useless. Because all it takes to actually have a sophisticated cyber security attack is basically do something stupid or something wrong. Basically putting a wrong USB in the wrong port, or basically through social engineering, I can talk my way into a system or do a sophisticated cyber security attack by actually socially engineering people in one way or another way. So we have to raise the awareness, and awareness is not only for tech-savvy people, it has to be for everybody. We are talking about the security guard outside of the building. We're talking about the coffee boy, about the janitor, about everybody who's involved in the organization, not only the IT department, not only the information security, but everybody has to know what is security and what is information security and what is cyber security in one way or another, even if they are actually do not use computers. They do not use computers in any way or any method. We have to address all ages. Nobody is too young, nobody is too old. We have to address security awareness at a young age. Of course, it is well known, it's common sense that we tell our kids, do not talk to strangers, make sure you look at both sides when you cross the road, but we also have to let them understand what does information security mean, how can I act with other people online, how do I interact with people in social media, in multiplayer games, and so on, because social attacks can start as early as an online game or a program or a video that was downloaded in one way or another way. We had a success story, basically, is that we actually did a research project at King Saud University in Center of Excellence in Information Assurance called RAWAM, or basically it's an acronym for الرخصة الوطنية لأمن المعلومات, which is an e-learning system that we applied to 15 different organizations, government and public and private, and it was an attempt to actually raise the awareness for non-technical people in this area. And this was one of the types of awareness programs that we think is useful for different people. The other part, which I think is very important, is basically the research and development, is being able to do practical on-hand research in areas of cybersecurity. Unfortunately, a lot of research that is ongoing in the region is theoretical. It ends up going into the shelf, or nobody is actually using it. The other problem, or the other thing, is that we have to involve all stakeholders. That means we have to involve industry, we have to involve government, we have to involve academia, we have to involve undergraduate and postgraduate students in one way or another way. The other tricky part is that there's really good technology outside. There's good technology, next generation firewalls, IPS, SIM solutions, SOC centers, and so on. But unfortunately, there are things we cannot buy with money. The vendors outside are going to sell you a really good black box. But basically, I want a white box. I want to know how does this work, what's inside it. I want to see the source code. I want to understand the algorithm in one way or another so I can improve on it. I do not need to wait for companies to actually improve the algorithm so that it works on this particular region or this particular localization and so on. So it's important that actually I build capacities. I can develop my own box. I can have my own gray or white box that I can use actually instead of what's available in the market, or as an enhancement for what's available in the market. So basically, black boxes are not enough. Academia has to play a much better role in those four categories, basically knowledge transfer, and basically technology transfer, and also technology localizations, because technology is not a one-size-fits-all. I cannot just use the same technologies in the US and Europe and Malaysia and apply it here as is. I have to change, I have to modify, I have to tweak the algorithms in some way or another, so I need a white box or a gray box so that I can play with. And basically, we have to build local capabilities by starting from the universities, from fresh graduates, from Saudi nationals, students, and so on. I thank you very much, and I would like to give the phone to our moderator.
Thank you, Dr. Jalal. I would like to share with you that after we discuss the ideas among the panelists, we'd like the audience to ask questions. We need this to be very interactive, live. We need to see your comments, questions, and even if you have a point to disagree, please raise it up. One of the things on a national level, as well as an extension of what Dr. Jalal said, is an initiative in the United States. It is about taking the curriculum for all the universities. They call it NICE, and it's under the NIST, which is the National Institute of Standards and Technology. It's a branch of the executive government, part of the federal government in the United States. They have defined a matrix skill set for every single job title. The tasks that job title needs to do to implement, whether within an organization or a government agency, and also the skills they need to improve. And I think a matrix like this is very important. If a country like the United States have, as a government, has launched a program like that, I think other governments and other organizations, even within the private sector, they need to implement something like that. Now, within organizations, I would like to hear from employees up to the level where they could, help companies protect against cyber threats.
All right, thank you, Doctor. What I would like to revert back is a little bit to our keynote speech this morning, where our distinguished keynote speaker asked the question, who is responsible for information security? Is it the IT professionals, or is it everybody's responsibility? We had an answer to that is basically everybody's responsibility. So what I would stress on is it has to be more than simply awareness. We have to have proper formal training for each and every individual within the organization. These individuals, of course, have different needs. The needs of people at an operational level are totally different than the needs for a board director or a mid-management. So we need to do this in a proper way. And that has to be integrated with the overall governance framework of the organization. It's not going to be a one-time off effort. Using the frameworks that you just discussed is an excellent way to actually assess the skills. Use these frameworks, such as the Sophia framework. Many of you may be familiar with the Sophia framework, which is another British framework for skills framework for the information age, to actually baseline these skills and use the same framework to do a skills gap analysis based on the role that these individuals should be executing in their organization. And based on these skill gaps, you can develop formal training programs, ongoing programs, that will involve much more than awareness. However, these programs, you have to take them and customize them to the needs of the particular organization. A bank will have totally different needs than a government organization. You have to look at the laws, the changes in technology. So it is something that has to be ongoing. And that has to fit within the overall governance framework of the organization. It's not going to be something that is separate from the organization.
So, Mr. Nasser,
I would look for a comprehensive approach, taking into consideration the existing culture in this part of the world and within the organizations themselves.
now you mentioned culture. So you think cybersecurity is not just a one-time mission, a task that we do and tomorrow we're safe. It's a continuous effort. You mentioned something about the customization of this training. So you're hinting this is not a one-size-fits-all.
Definitely not.
Even within the organization, you
Definitely
have different
not.
employees. They have different training requirements to raise their level to the proper level, where we think we're a little bit more or safer than where we used to be in the past. I would like to have Mr. Mamdouh. He's the head of the information technology in a holding company, dealing with different companies within the same structure. How do you think awareness plays a role in increasing cybersecurity?
We had external auditors came to our company some time back, and something they highlighted very clearly in our report of shame, actually, okay, is that the lack of IT security policy. See, we went ahead and we actually implemented the IT security policy, and that's very interesting. We followed the ISO, and we got very nice one. And one of the items in it was to lock up the screen within a couple of minutes if nobody's using it. And the day we implemented that one, guess who the first one who called me and yelling at me? The CEO. I cannot use this PC anymore. It locks up every 3 minutes. It's what actually you set it to 5 minutes, and then we increase it to 10 minutes. So the culture is that the people that get used to the easiness and the convenience of using their IT the way they want, there is a trade-off between being secure and the ease of use. So the culture of people actually we have, at least in the private sector, in SMEs, is that security is there, is good to have, but don't apply it on me. Okay, and that's really a bigger issue. In some organizations and so smaller companies, where is the smaller number of people working in a specific task, they do share user IDs. You share the passwords. And you go to someone and you find the password actually printed in his desk, so he cannot really forget it. So anyone or any visitor can come and actually read it. So I think the culture in general, okay, is actually saying that it's actually a lean toward security. Nothing will happen, inshallah khair, and things will be perfect. So I think we have to change that one. And one of the things that we started in my company is that when the CEO asked for that, we asked him to sign a deviation from the policy. Then he thought that's really serious now, okay, because this deviation, we're gonna take it and give to our external auditors and saying, hey, we have a deviation, yes, but that's why. And the justification sometimes cannot stand up for the auditors, and sometimes we turn it down. So what I'm saying, the companies got to go make actually a kind of a campaign over all the company, using screensaver, using all the communication means in the company to tell the people how serious it is to actually leak the information of the information of the company. How important it is to actually keep your user ID. What can go wrong? I remember back when working in a different company in Canada, is that when someone actually, we see someone's screen is unlocked, we go and write nasty email to his boss. Okay, so we actually will learn from that one. So I think awareness is something that needs to be actually beefed up, and the companies then needs to make it very seriously.
All right, thank you so much for your comment. There is one thing. Now, a lot of people, especially in companies, they think security just made their life a little bit more difficult. We used to browse the internet, no firewall, no kind of restrictions. I don't have to change my password every now and then. So bringing that into the cultural context, now companies have to change, okay? And people probably have to change. But there is one thing, now, especially when it comes to executives, when they make decisions about capital investment, they think investing in human resources is intangible. I don't see the return on investment. A lot of people focusing on the technology side. I bring boxes, I install them, I'm secure. What is your perspective on this? How CEOs or head of organizations go about this? Is this something that they have to take in consideration, a cultural change even at the executive level instead just of the professional level? Please.
We have business continuity management in the program. And the only reason we had it is very high in the program. Is the regulation is one thing. And in Jeddah, there is a family business. The whole building, they have really actually, the whole company was burnt up from upside down, and they have no documents whatsoever, okay, left. They went to their clients and to the banks to get their documents back, some of them at least. So only when we're hit with a real situation, some people really wake up, okay? Or when the board actually adopt that one. If the board realizes the importance of security, okay, and push it down, that at that time, I think the company will be aware. The CEO himself got to be actually the target of personal campaign from the head of IT and the CIO. They get to go and talk to him. They get to convince him of the risk of that one. Unless someone actually at that position understand how critical this is, the culture won't change easily.
Okay, really appreciate it. I would like to get questions, comments from the audience. We need this to be a little bit more interactive. Please, go ahead, on the back.
Thank you very much. I have one comment that maybe you guys have overlooked about it. Since the topic is about the capacity building in the kingdom, so I would suggest that maybe, you know, everyone has mobiles in their hands, right? Everyone is using the social media, the social kind of softwares they are using nowadays, the Facebook, the Twitter, and everything. So one important aspect is the learning regarding all of the apps that we currently have. What does it mean if your mobile has the location services on, right? What the common people or the layman should know that what does this mean actually if your location service is on, or if you are sending something to a group, what does this mean, and what are the different parameters that mobile is taking secretly from your location and all of your data. If you install some application on your mobile and it asks for some permission, and all of the contacts has been transferred from your mobile to the server, right? So my point is that the people, as the topic is the capacity building in the kingdom, so there should be some awareness program from the children for the common people here that are using these gadgets nowadays. So they should be known about the threats of using this technology now that has been penetrated systematically into the common lives of the people. So this was my point actually.
Very good point. Thank you very much for the question. And I think this is very important. It's part of the awareness campaign, is also tell people what technology is doing. So a lot of people do not realize, and this is actually a research that we did at the university, is basically enormous amount of information you can gather from the tweets of somebody. Because usually if you're using Twitter from your phone, it actually records your location. If your location is on, so you can tell where this person is and where did he actually tweet last time. And you can even tell if this person is in town, or he's in vacation, or he's out, or he's, and so on. And you can actually infer other information, other very sensitive information, like gender, for example. For example, in our research project, we noticed that some user actually tweets a lot from Noura University. So this actually tells that most likely she's a female and goes often to Noura University in one way or another. So the problem is that we have to figure out actually the consequences of using all this technology. Sometimes you might not tweet insensitive information, but if you gather information from Twitter and gather it and tie it up with information from LinkedIn and Facebook, then you have a complete profile about that particular person. And I think this is part of the awareness, is that we have to understand the consequences of our digital life or our digital use of all those technologies in one way or another way.
If I may add one thing, that one of the points that commitment for such initiatives, as you clearly mentioned, has to come from the top. You have to have top management commitment for any such initiative. The other thing that you mentioned about devices, these days, the most powerful devices are actually not with IT professionals, but are with management. They like to have these devices, they like to show off, they like to keep up with the latest technology. And that's why why you need to have this constant training and awareness. You were talking, example, about location. They can now know your location without even having your location services on, just by following the patterns of battery usage. There was a research about this a couple of weeks ago. I don't know if you're aware about this. So they can even track your location even without have location services on. And that's why you really need to have constant awareness for different types of users. Connect to a network. For the old-timers like us, you had to be really technically savvy. You had to know about interrupts, channels, all of this stuff. Now a 6-year-old can connect to a network without having any technical knowledge whatsoever. So how do you handle these things?
If I may add something, I think this question may be touching on who owns the awareness at that level. Okay, now fair, we understand we need to have awareness. Who's gonna own it? Okay, well, what's the entity that will make sure that such awareness is actually being spread out among the people, among kids, amongst all the users? I think government will be the right candidate to do that, and I think I'm talking to the person that work actually in that field, is that the government is doing these initiatives, and they should really elaborate or expand on this one, so the actual Saudi TV and the newspapers will have something that will published on a regular basis to remind people about the risk that they're actually encountering without really their feeling or noticing.
From research we did at the National Cybersecurity Center here in Saudi, governments cannot do everything alone. There has to be a collaborative approach between the government, the public, and also the private sector. Governments usually they're hit by their budget constraints. They cannot go on a massive scale. The private sector has to play a role. Individuals themselves have to understand the risks. For example, a spam email. Now it's becoming very common that you get a lot of cyber threats and cyber penetration through networks or through spam email. We all know about spam email. We all receive spam email. So as individuals, we have to also raise our own personal level about the computing devices that we use, and we know that they're bringing a lot of vulnerabilities with them. We have to be aware of the risks that we see on a daily basis. Sometimes a link that will take you to a website where it will steal your password and information. We have to be aware that my username and password is like my passport. You will never give your passport to a stranger, or you wouldn't give your passport to a certain entity just because they asked for it. You have to make sure this entity is an entity that is authorized to receive your password and information. So this is one thing. So there has to be a collaborative approach between the government, between the private sector, and also between the public. I would love to receive more comments and questions from the question. Please go ahead. Yes, please. Yep.
I need to add and comment to what Dr. Jalal said and Mr. Nasser said regarding the awareness and the category of the awareness recipients. One of my clients have done recently a research on phishing emails, and actually they have sent a bunch of phishing emails to their users, and they have found out that 27% of the users, they have clicked on a phishing link inside that email. And what was astonishing is that 5% of those users were management and managerial positions. So we all agree that awareness should be delivered to end users, to IT and technicians, as well as to management and C-level officers. Thank you.
Excellent.
Can I
Go ahead.
A small comment. I think I agree with you 100%. And sometimes this is where the culture actually comes in a barrier, because sometimes as a manager, you can imagine I would say, no, I already know those things, so I will not take an awareness class, but everybody else should take the awareness. So we have to emphasize that awareness is for everybody, whether it's for the layman or for the coffee boy, up to the hierarchy to VVIPs and managers and top executives in a company. Because every security is a responsibility for everybody, not just one person or two person or a department in particular.
Any other comments, please? Okay. I can't see from the podium, so please help me.
Actually, it's a comment. I attended the security conference back in January in the US, and one of the top hackers in the world, who actually has his own private company, told me there is nothing in the world that we want to hack to, or we want to get to. Any network, anything you want, we can hack into it. The question is whether we want to do that or not. So that's just a comment that hackers can get to anything they want, whether it's a nuclear something or anything that they need to do, they can get to it. So I just thought to share this information with you. Thanks.
Well, thank you for the comment, and probably this would even stress on the point that the danger is real. People has access to our networks. We have to be aware. We have to take every single effort to at least defend our own assets. And one of the things, even in risk management approach, you have to classify your information. Which information or portion that you're willing to lose in case you have a heavy penetration into your network. This culture also, or this awareness of how we go about defending cybersecurity also needs probably to be changed. Any other comments? Please, go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum. I'll give some points on Mr. Mamdouh, which he said, which the difficulty he has faced when he was implementing security in his organization. Typically, I'm talking from the point of view of private organizations.
Okay. Yes, thank you very much. Actually, this is a very good idea. I am not aware of any programs right now, but I think this should be basically a role of everybody, is transferring knowledge for the benefit of everybody, whether it's a Saudi national or somebody resident in the case A. So I think this is a responsibility that we should all carry to some extent. I'm not aware of any particular programs, but I think this could be a very nice idea or initiative to actually start in one way or another way, through maybe the university, maybe through national cybersecurity centers and so on. So this is actually a good point.
Dr. Zaidan, may I comment on that one? Okay, just one comment. Is that the responsibility of your business continuity is the responsibility of your boss, okay? So I make sure that you have a backup. Your boss should really make a very backup. So the knowledge you have in your mind, if you have it alone, that's the risk you're introducing to your company, by the way.
And I want to ask a question to the audience. We all talk about awareness. Do we all agree that awareness is very critical and is needed and is the solution to raise at least the cybersecurity capacity in a country? Tfadal. There is, can we have a mic here at the front, please?
There's one, sorry, your turn will come.
Hello. Yeah, I'm talking from the corporate perspective. So yes, we do agree that it's a responsibility for all the people, but as we want to say that there needs to be an accountability, for somebody in the company, in the enterprise, to take it forward, to make the decisions, and to communicate the business value of taking these steps to build a business case of this thing. to affect the culture or change the culture. And in that direction, I think there is a need for communication and training as well. Maybe for the key stakeholders for IT, that could be group IT heads, that could be CIOs. They also need to be trained to communicate the business value, the stakes, the risks, the advantages of non-tangible benefits which arises because of these security programs which they want to take it forward to the highest stakeholders in the business, that is the CEOs or the board of members. So from my point of view, the next steps are relatively easy. When the business case is sold, the ownership and the responsibility has been taken up by the business stakeholders. Getting it in effect and taking the steps forward of actually running the awareness program and pushing it forward with the right sets of policies and procedures are relatively easier, not as challenging as building up a case where the ownership and the advantages gets communicated in no uncertain terms to the business owners. So the training for the CIOs to communicate the benefits to the business owners who see things from the business point of view is also one important part of the training which I want to stress on.
And I will come back to you. Just to second voice your point, I am aware that in the UK government through their the counterpart of the Ministry of Interior over there, they have an executive course for every single government official in the high rank. They have to take this course in cybersecurity, so they are, at least they're aware of the challenges and aware of the obligations and what they need to do actually to become better in defending cybersecurity of their government organizations. Please.
If I may, okay. Go ahead with the question. Sorry.
السلام عليكم.
عليكم السلام.
سعاد المالكي, MCIT, Ministry of Communication and Information Technology. Regarding the awareness, I think we are very low in this part. I mean, most of the organization users, they are not aware of security, and those who are aware, they don't apply the security rules and regulations, or they don't prefer to enforce the security laws and regulations on them. So most of the time you find user and password under the table, under the keyboard, and most of the time they give user and password to their colleagues, not only one colleague, but many people. Yeah. And they do the work on their behalf, which is not right. So the responsibility to do the awareness, I think it's shared among all stakeholders. IT people know the security importance, and most of organizations, they apply the rule within the IT department. But if you go to the business people, they care only about the business. They don't care about security, or they don't pay attention to how important the security is. So I think it's, and we are not doing, really, we are not doing well in the awareness part. So it's a shared responsibility, and I believe the partners, the security providers, and the IT departments and the organization should coordinate together as many sessions in the awareness field as they can. We did good example in the Ministry of Information and Communication. We gave the user the ownership of data. If you go to any government organization and ask about data, they will send you direct to the IT. But in the ministry, what we did, we give the ownership to the business and say, the ownership of this data belongs to you, not to the IT department. So any changes happen to the data is your responsibility. And we don't have the right to change the data. So they started to feel the importance of security. And it was good practice, and just want to share it with you. Thank you.
Thank you. You had a point to
If
add?
I may add to one thing that the gentleman in the back mentioned, when I talked earlier about capacity building, I talked about capacity building within the overall framework of enterprise governance. If you have a governance framework, you are going to have policies in place, you're going to have clearly defined roles and responsibilities, you are going to have clearly defined accountabilities. So capacity building has to be done exactly within that context. It is an overall approach. It's not something that is done separately. Now, regarding the communication with the management, there are different communication channels that you have, or the communication methods that you have to take into consideration. It's not just death by PowerPoint. You can do some e-learning exercises. You can do some simulation games where you get them involved, role-playing exercises. Take it as an overall context for governance. Setting policies in place, because I've seen in many organizations, I do a lot of training and consulting. You walk into an organization, you ask, do you have an information security policy in place? In many instances, they'll say, no. When you're lucky and they say yes, okay, have you seen it? Have you read it? Most of the people haven't even read it. They just sign on it and that's it. Sharing passwords, I have seen it done at border entry points. Can you imagine one person sharing his password at a border entry point? What kind of risk is involved there? I have seen it in IT organizations, in an IT department, and the worst part is mostly those are administrative passwords or root passwords. It is still being done. And that's why you have to take culture into consideration when you're doing this. You have to take the policies and procedures. It is a comprehensive approach. So don't take it something that's totally separate from the organization when we talk about capacity building.
We have a question here, or a comment maybe.
Hello?
Yes.
It's a quick question. We're talking about raising awareness. And many of my colleagues here are talking about raising awareness within institutions. Although I think we are directing the talk to raising awareness at a country level. Okay? The main issue is we are talking about raising awareness, but at a country level, it's a completely different play game. Okay, it's not like what you are doing in an individual organization. In a private organization where you have 2,000, 3,000 employees, you can exactly set goals and follow up these goals. But at country level, it's a different game. When we say, for example, raise, it means that we are going to go from a level to a better level. Okay? So this goes without saying, logically, it means that you have ways to measure your current level. Okay? So you can measure what levels you have achieved. Okay? Now, do we have these capabilities currently to measure levels of awareness at a country level or not? Because without this, I don't think we have even a basic building block, okay, to raise awareness at a country level. Because raise goes, in order to raise, you need to understand exactly where is your current level is and what's your target goal is. Okay? And without this, I don't think it will be easy.
That's a good question. Usually governments do like a baseline study. They go and you cannot do it, you cannot measure or have a quantitative study or research on every single aspect in the country. Because if you don't concentrate on one sector or one specific segment of the government, then you have a massive job to do which will take you forever. The public, this is very difficult to measure, but on the what's so-called now the critical national infrastructures, or the CNIs, governments, what they do, they measure their readiness, or they measure their implementation of certain cybersecurity best practices against certain standards that are well known, and they say and they see how far off from that standard. But back to the main point. Even if you do this, and you know that today you're at, for example, level 1 or 3 or 4, and you need to go to level 5, and you're able to measure this. the threat is changing. Technology, life, time is very short. We just had the smartphones. Probably the first smartphone we had was back in summer 2007. Now we have generations of smartphones and different. Probably Facebook is younger than a lot of our kids. Okay, that tells you exactly that even the content that we get on the smartphone is very young. So the challenge is to have this awareness embedded, okay, within even our culture and our daily life. I have
just one thing, just to comment in the awareness measurements. And the way we measure awareness in our organization is how many times I publish certain article about that one. That's the least you can do. So if you can actually see it, if you're talking about it in public, how many times an ad is being published, how many TV ads that you have every month or every week, or how many minutes of exposure. This is a basic way of measuring these things. I'd like to comment on the e-learning and also on the point he really mentioned about the backup and giving the Saudis people and the people to learn about that one. We should not really forget formal training of security. Okay, so actually if you have security people, you have people actually working in organization IT, they get to have formal and proper security training and to be even certified in that measurement. So you have really the capability and the capacity in the company, okay, that actually can actually take the championship to actually train others, to spread the good words about the security, and to enforce the measurements that got to be there.
As I would like to ask, do we have vendors in the audience who sells boxes of technologies and cybersecurity?
We got somebody
All right.
there
I
behind the
think one
podium.
of the things, one of the outcomes out of this panel discussion is you have to be more innovative. You see, the audience has agreed that awareness is very important. I want to see a comprehensive awareness program, innovative, outside the box from IBM, for example. I don't want to just see firewalls and you know, I need to see a very focused, tailored program on how to raise the level of the individuals, whether as part of the public, within organizations, within the government. Something that I think everybody here agrees on, awareness is very important, and governments, businesses, individuals, not doing enough to address this challenge. Please.
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to respond. Any other vendors? Just me. We do this. We share lots of information. We actually contribute. Again, I'm a member of the European Union Agency to contribute back to the communities, to contribute back to academia, public sector, private sector. I think one of the issues that I see at the moment is there seems to be a lack of a want to share information. There's a whole process to get to the point where you build, again, some good security programs for a national gain, really. And you start off with the urgency. So what I'm seeing at the moment, there's not enough, again, organizations coming to us, asking us for that information. Now, we obviously can push that information out, but there needs to be requests and requirements. What I'd like to see more is, again, security professionals working for vendors to contribute back as well to the community. I'd much rather talk to the CISO of an organization, of a technical vendor, than perhaps, again, a sales professional over and over again. So that really needs to come from, again, organizations. If you ask to speak to the CISO for WebSense, for FireEye, for IBM, you should be able to do that. You should be able to contribute back and ask those kind of things. We are doing it, but I think there needs to be more demand. And I think the more demand we get, the more people we will get focusing on those kind of areas.
Okay, thank you. I think we're running out of time. For the Saudi entrepreneurs who are looking for an opportunity in cybersecurity, do awareness. I don't see the big companies doing it. That's probably a green field for you to do. I would like to thank you all for listening and for this interactive discussion. Thank the guests for their contribution to this panel discussion. And thank you all, and see you tomorrow, inshallah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sincere regards to Dr. Alenezi, Zaidan Alenezi, and the rest of the team. Though our expectation from NCSC might be a little high, and we would like to know more about your contribution, not only in the Ministry of Information and its umbrella, but also with the academia, with the universities, with the colleges, especially the military colleges, schools. Can you guide a program, a national-wide program?
Is this an extension of the panel discussion? Now you're asking me.
I'm asking because you are in the right place. You are the head of NCSC, I thought.
I'm not the head of the. I'm not the head of the NCSC. I'm responsible about certain functions. That's just to correct. The NCSC in Saudi is part of the MOI, Ministry of Interior, and is launching multiple programs. One of them is to build the human resource capacity, and we have existing partnerships with CAXT, for example. They have already allocated fund to work on research and the cybersecurity. Also, we have a program, existing initiative with the universities. We have meetings. We have also a very active coordination and collaboration with our CNIs and building the infrastructure to make sure we address the cybersecurity threats on a national level.